Go ahead, but
I wanted to add on about the bacteria and with the European, because that's the important question. People want to know who the hell he is.
There you go. Where he come from?
And studying the phylogenetic tree, Europeans don't come directly from Africans. Let's get that correct. They come from people out of Asia. Perfect example. When you look at the blacks of Asia, not the Andamanese groups that live in the southern islands, but the Dravidians with the narrow, what they refer to as aquiline features. Or when you look at the people in the Solomon Islands with blonde hair but brown skin. Well, you look at the people of Australia, and you look at Kostiki man or Kostiki caveman that they found 30,000 years ago, and the way he looked like an Aborigine in Australia. His Y chromosome was haplogroup CV20. And when you study these people, you clearly see that mutation variants or downgrades or deletion genes starts to go through its deterioration or deletions or the mutations within Asia, outside when people leave out of Africa. Why? The temperatures is different. Temperatures of foods is different. You're not eating the same type of foods and nutrients that you had in Africa. It's important for us to get the proper nutrients, the proper hydrogen, and to increase the red blood cells, because what does red blood cells do? It gives off oxygen and gets rid of carbon. This is what the power of erythrocytes does, red blood cells. When you deal with leukocytes and thermocytes, the leukocytes have its role too, because it fights off certain type, like people that have HIV. When the T cells drop low and their immune system is too weak, it's not the virus that kill them, it's the common cold that kill them, because they have no defense. But their red blood cells is being deteriorated in the process too, because they have no defenses. When people start to lose their hair, they lose proper protein, or they lose protein and their hair gets straight. You don't have the proper nutrients in the body. So when a person leaves outside of the continent and live in ancient Europe 24,000 years ago in the Mendel Glacier period with a lack of resources, it ain't like the Eskimo or the Newt living in Alaska that has a high amount of vitamin D from fish. We're talking about the Mendel Glacier period or the certain ice caps in Central Asia where they had shit, but dead corpse of their ancestors and breeding with nasty, filthy, archaic human groups like Neanderthals. These humans don't come directly from Africa. They come out of Africa. They lose their goddamn mind somewhere in Asia. This is just me. This is just what makes sense. And then in between, they go through mutations there because they're eating different types of food, different temperatures. And then, goddamn it, they go further and breed with archaic groups. So in between, they're more prone to violence. Perfect example was a gene called ADRRA gene. And the ADRRA gene is responsible for giving a lot of Europeans the high levels of violence and different things because they're prone to war. Even the ancient Egyptians said that the Tamahu has been fighting since the time of Haru, or the Amu has been fighting since the time of Haru, and Haru represents man. This is a whole nother group of warring, battling people. Even when you study the Europeans, the Indo-European tribes like the Persian group that conquered the original people of Babylonia, and then turned around and fought against their cousins, the Indo-European Greek, and then the Ionian Greeks in Turkey, or the Hittites who came from Anatolia, who pushed out the original indigenous groups that was there one time and went to other places. They were always fighting each other. And by the time they came down from fighting each other, after they got done fighting each other, you was in the way, they kept purging themselves in. So this is why it's important to study timelines and why people are the way they are. So we know that stress, not having a proper hydrogen, not having a proper nutrients. What does blood consist of? Blood consists of what? Hormones, protein, sugar, and salt. Sugar is made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Salt is made of chlorine and sodium. And then you have the protein that consists of a chain of amino acids. And we talked about the two bonds, which is carbon, 2 oxygens, but it's negative charge. Then we talked about the hormone. What is a hormone? The hormone is a short chain of proteins, which is a short chain of amino acids as well, which is also responsible for a lot of things, the way your organs give off certain hormones. So when you don't have the proper nutrients or the proper potassium, which is partially responsible for the mutation of SLC24A5, which is a recent mutation that the white boy and the white woman got. If you don't have the proper potassium, the short code label for SLC2485 is sodium, potassium, calcium exchange of 5. What's going on? You see the downgrades of NCH, NC, or you start to see the mutations. You see the alanine become tyrosine. And then once that goes on, you start to see the mutations. And this is the reason why we talked about the polar bear. What is the polar bear? He's not white. He's hollow. But his skin is dark because he metabolizes food different than us. That's what I was trying to say. He metabolizes food different than us, so his metabolism is different. But when it comes to this white man, this dude was damn near, I mean, he went through so many changes in zones. When you deal with the SLC2485, this is responsible for his skin color. I ain't getting into the blue eye gene, which is OCA2, the second strand of albinism, which is occultaneous strand 2, which gave them that, or ectolocus, ectoplasmic receptor, which gave them thick, straight black hair. We got to talk about all these mutations that went on in between. And not to mention, it happened first with women before the men. Because when you deal with the subterranean fats, or how women work, women have, we know that mutations started with these cracker women first. I'm just saying. Because the diversity of hair types that they have, hair colors that they have the highest diversity of hair color, eye color, and different things. You see it with the women first. So what I'm saying is that it's not simple like that. So it's not a direct out of Africa thing. It's Africa, Asia, after Asia, going into other areas, breeding with archaic groups. When you study the Asian line, the people that come out of Asia with the Negrito first, the Australasian, the Australoid, the Paleo-Mongoloid. From the Paleo-Mongoloid, it gives rise to the Proto-Mongoloid. From the Proto-Mongoloid, it gives rise to the Neo-Mongoloid. The Neo-Mongoloid is the recent Japanese and Chinese that you see. When you study the Y chromosome of the paternal lineage, we see haplogroup CT-M168 leaving out of the continent, go into Asia, CF, and from CF you get the single F831, and from that F you get the IJK marker. The IJK marker branches off. Some goes into parts of further Asia and become the K marker and the T marker that certain people, the Solomon Islands got. Other groups become the single I that Cro-Magnon man took into Europe 24,000 years ago when he ended up in France. It branches off of the IJ branch. Another group stays in the Arabian Peninsula, becomes a single J. Earliest J is JP209, and then it goes all the way down into the last Y chromosome that these people have, which is the R1 marker, which comes from haplogroup P in Asia first. They took those gene variants into Europe. The earliest Europeans, when I pull up my phone in the charge, they talked about the dude that they found was dark skinned with blue eyes. The mutation of the blue eye gene comes from out of Central Asia or the Georgia area, but the people were darker skinned, and then the R1 markers brought this SLC2485 in and gave the recent Europeans the pale skin. It's a lot of downgrades that go on with these people. A lot of downgrades. And we see the downgrades happening in our community because the average African man, and I'm not talking about all of it, but we got brothers, regardless of our difference.
Of course.
But when you talk about when black people are outside of their righteous zone, and we see how a lot of people act, dudes said we were savages. And in Chicago, what the young dudes call themselves? We savages. That's what the drill music is. That's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, yeah, that's what they saying, they savages. So we see what happens when we deal with downgrade, not to mention the way we eat, the way we carry ourselves, leaky gut that you talked about, you know, all types of neural tube defects, the high levels of insanity, type 2 diabetes, low levels of insulin that the body can't produce naturally, all types of deficiencies that we develop trying to live a lifestyle of this poor potassium carrier that we call the European, correct, which has a lower level of sodium intake. That's why he eats salt all goddamn day. The only time he get prone to high blood pressure is when he go through stress, and you better be from Europe or Bolivia. That's who have high blood pressure at the highest rate of Europe. They have, the darker the media is, the more nutrients, the more sodium naturally. The lighter it is, it's dull, it's limp. So what I'm saying is that when you deal with just basic, looking at basic stuff like that, this dude is a downgrade. So I'm not gonna say, and you can use the term devolution if you want to. That's fine. If you choose to, but I'm saying you can use that term. But here's the thing: I'm not going to say they're already a fixed species, and they're not superior. They're not more superior than us. Correct. They're already a fixed species. We're already a fixed species. But I will admit that they are a deletion or deletion genes, which went through downgrades to become what they are. They have low genetic variations. They have low heterozygosity. This is why they're not as athletic as you. This is why they can't do the things that you do. There's a lot of dullness that goes on with them. And we see downgrades that happen with our people.